Well, this is great. I'm glad we get to see the laboratory behind you, see where all the magic
Oh,
happens.
I see it too much.
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
are you? You here, over there, somewhere else?
yes. Well, I'm in Dallas, Texas, and last time we talked, it was during the pandemic, and I believe you said this was I guess, a guest house behind your house where you kind of
That's
sequestered
right.
most of the time, right?
It's the stalker. Yes.
Yeah.
Live room's through there, and the house is back
Yes.
there. And yeah, so yeah, I don't feel like I've moved that much in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Cabin fever. Anyway, are you all ready for Thanksgiving?
Oh yes, I'm ready. We got all of my family's here, so we're getting together pretty soon actually. So and then of course we have our great Dallas Cowboys game tomorrow, so hopefully that'll go well. I know, I
It's
know.
not Chelsea in soccer, so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well,
I know, that'd be great. Enjoy your day.
well for everybody else, there's Dolly Parton's doing the halftime show, so there's that. You know,
Honestly.
yeah.
Oh my God, the legend. That'd be amazing.
So at least there's that, right? You know. Well, we are so excited to have you on with us today because oh my gosh, this movie is fascinating, and of course, you know, with Critics' Choice, you know, all of us noticed with the documentary awards, the film, and you must be getting some good feedback because this is like an endlessly fascinating person and story, and so like when you're listening to his stories and thinking of music to come up, especially working with Phil, that's got to be just a I was like, man, I get paid to do this, right?
Get paid? What? Yeah. Do you know what? There are some things I've been so fortunate that these last few years, just for the projects I've been working on, where it's just fun. You know, it's not work. I mean, obviously it's work, but you're just working with these incredible people on incredible stories. And it means that, yeah, when you have those kind of relationships with filmmakers or composers or whatever, it's just a blast actually sort of going out and doing different stuff. I mean, yeah, the Pigeon Tunnel has gone down so well. Not just the score, he says arrogantly, but the film in general. It's one of Errol's, in my opinion. I mean, they're all bloody good, but it's one of his best for the simple reason that the thing what I love about it, got John le Carré, you know, David Cornwell, but John le Carré, I grew up on his books. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy,
Yeah.
Came in from the Cold. Yeah, I've read them all. So Errol, you know, calls and says, "Hey, got this film," and Brill. And it's like these two guys. You've got Errol and you've got David, John,
Hmm.
pick a name,
Yeah.
John le Carré, and you've got the two of them literally just bouncing off each other. And they never, it's
Hmm.
not like a lot of the time Errol just not tries to trip people up, but you know, he gives them enough rope to hang themselves.
Yes.
Whereas with this, I think there's a mutual respect with each other, but there's also just this mutual massive intellect. So there's this fun sort of back and forth between them, and they both get each other's sense of humor. And it's not like they knew each other beforehand. So suddenly there's just this mutual respect for them. It was absolutely wonderful. And then say he says, "Oh, well, do you fancy doing it with Philip?" And I was just like, I mean, Chuck and other fantastic collaborations, the mix is like, how can even I go wrong with this one?
That's true. Well, I've been lucky enough to interview Errol before and be one-on-one in a room with them and I wasn't sure who was doing the question asking or interrogating.
Right. Yeah, well, he used to be a private detective. So
Ah.
so that's where he kind of learned his skills. And I was talking to him at it was a BAFTA screening that we did just after the New York Film Festival. And I was up on stage with Errol and we were just chatting away. And I think one of the questions was all of the Q&As with Errol and I just always turn into complete carnage, and you forget about the question that was actually asked to begin with. You know, so you did brilliantly to survive, Errol. You clearly
Yes.
survived to live another day, so well done. But yeah, we were talking about musical styles and how look, Philip Glass had done the first three films I think of Errol's, including The Thin Blue Line, which got him the Oscar. And I said to Errol, look, for me coming in, I've done about 5 or 6 films with Errol now, the last 5 or 6. And coming in and doing that, what I've realized with his films are it's not a traditional documentary where music is very low down in the mix. It's always about momentum. It's always about driving. It's always about energy. And Philip and Errol, when they worked on the Thin Blue Line, I said to him, look, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but I think you were finding your style then. And the fact that you happen to have Philip Glass, I mean, God, as your first collaborator, but that found the style, it found the momentum, which is what Philip's wonderful minimal style is all about. Doodle doodle doodle, you got these triplets just running underneath. But to write music, which does a lot, but without doing too much, because you can't detract from the voiceover, it's really bloody hard. So many have tried and failed. But so I said to Errol, I felt that you were finding your style with that. And now, obviously, everyone knows you for your first 3 collaborations with Philip. And obviously now with me, with Wormwood and so on with him and American Dharma and B-side and blah, 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 blah. But it's my own version of that, but with the same kind of momentum. I said, it's just something about your voice. It's something that you need that momentum underneath. It just drives the story. So it was wonderful getting to work with Philip. It was like getting the band back together almost.
Yeah, that's great. Well, in Philip, of course, is even more elusive than than Errol is, and doesn't do a lot in the way of media or interviews. So we don't have as much insight on him. But what is he like as a collaborator?
Oh, he's wonderful. I think the reason he doesn't do any media is because he's writing 50,000 operas at one time.
Right.
How many hands does a person have to kind of do this? Do you know what? He is just wonderful. As a human being, he's wonderful. He's so generous of spirit. But also as a collaborator, I think what I've found probably in the last 5 years when I've started to chill out a bit, I think I used to be, believe it or not, very, very kind of a lot of I still have a lot of energy, but then I was oh my goodness. When you relax with people, and this is me relaxed, but when you relax with people, you just bounce ideas off each other. So the first time that I met Philip, we were working on Tales from the Loop. It was an Amazon series, and it was mildly terrifying, to put it to say the least, because you're going and meeting this human being who you know nothing about other than the fact that he's an iconic composer, one of the greatest living composers, and you kind of go there and he starts analyzing your work and you're chatting away and he says, look, I love this track of yours and I love this, and he's gone onto YouTube and checked me out. I'm kind of like, oh, thank you, but then you realize that he's just another human being. He's like, look, I love that melody here, but if it was me, I would do this. And we went up to a studio and he was playing different chords underneath my melodies, and that really broke it down, because then it's like, oh look, it's just another musician, just another composer. He's a fellow artist. So then I kind of say, well, so what do you think of this? Because here's a tune that I wrote for you with this in mind. And I said, well, the first time I remember kind of not saying an awful lot. It's fine. And then we got into the second episode of Tales from the Loop, and I started kind of saying to him, it's like, look, I like that, but I think you could probably do more with it there, or let's try doing this. And it's just when you get over those first nerves with someone that you realize, as soon as you start collaborating, you've got to have a sense of trust with that person. You're putting your soul out there, and you've got to trust, whether it's trust as a director with Errol or trust with a composer with Philip. But I think he really respected that, because then after that, it's just a case of, he said, look, people always are too frightened to say anything. So he said, if something's not right, it's not that it's a bad piece of music, it's not right for this. So let's have a chat about it. So now on this one, I mean, it was like a meeting of minds. It was wonderful on the Pigeon Tunnel.
Yeah, well, and that's a really solid, I guess, a bit of advice for people. But I know you've had such a interesting career full of all kinds of different music for all kinds of different things, which is really exciting. And for people, who want to do that, they look up to you and they think, okay, that's what I want to do. But what kind of advice do you give to people or kids or musicians that want to do this?
What to do? What, film music or concert music?
Yeah, but all of it. Just to do music, but to be blessed to do music for a living, really.
You just gotta have your own style, and I don't mean to try and find a style for the sake of it, but I mean from a point of view of stop worrying what people want. Definitely when I started out, I was worried about, is this right? Or, oh my goodness, or are they speaking to other people, or this or that? And because obviously you're starting out, so you're trying to sort of make sure that everyone's happy. But I think when you stop thinking of it as a job and actually just relax and enjoy the process, because it's not that you're going to get everything right first time. And again, I use that word right. I just mean it's not that you're going to get what is going on in the director's mind or the theatre director's mind or the games, the audio director's mind. It's a collaboration. When you think of it as a collaboration, don't think of that person as the boss or the enemy, but instead you think of them on your side. That's totally the way to do it, because then you're having fun and go, well, look, I've tried this. It was what my first reaction was to your film. We can totally go a different way with it, but first reactions normally are kind of your first instincts are the way to go. So just be confident with what you're doing rather than trying to second guess people. Just go with the flow.
Yeah, well said. My co-host, speaking to Dallas Cowboys, is a Dallas Cowboy, or one of our great legends, Drew Pearson, who caught the Hail Mary, and one of our classic guys, went in the Hall of Fame. And so we like to ask people their Hail Mary moment, which is that moment in your life or career where you just kind of had to go for it and it worked out for you. What do you suppose that was for you?
God, what was my Hail Mary moment other than meeting my wife? And that was a total Hail Mary moment. I think it was probably Limitless, the film, because I remember I didn't know, I still don't know what I'm doing, but like someone said, oh, do you want to pitch for this film? I was like, sure. I didn't know what a pitch was. You got all these wonderfully educated composers that have been to UCLA or Berkeley or all these wonderful colleges who are all fucking amazing, and they all come and kind of send me all their reels every week and say, hey, and I'm listening to that going like, God, they're brilliant. But I was just like, sure. But I didn't know what a pitch was. So apparently everyone went back sort of having scored stuff to picture and this and that and going, hey, I just went off and wrote some tunes and kind of said, oh, I think this is kind of what's going on in that dude's head. It was Bradley Cooper. It's like, I think this is what's going on in Bradley Cooper's head, or this is what's going on in Robert De Niro's head, and all that kind of stuff. And they just laid them into picture and going like, oh yeah, it's really cool. And I've just been working with a band. So I was just like, yeah, and I say I'm classically trained. I've used all my massive orchestras, but I was just like, yeah, I think this would be quite cool with a band kind of soundtrack, but I didn't know what I was doing. Still don't, as I say, so they just kind of took it, and it was like, well, we'll soon see, rather than speak to everyone and find out what you're supposed to do. So I threw the ball, and yeah, it didn't puncture, and I think it did all right,
I love that. Well, part of that is that sort of maybe stubbornness, or it's a success mindset in a way to kind of just keep going, even if you aren't quite sure what you're doing or where you're headed. And so we talk about that on the show too. Is there something that you kind of keep in mind that kind of keeps you on that right path, or keeps you going even when things are tough? Because sometimes you can get stuck, or sometimes you're like, what am I doing?
I permanently have that thought of what am I doing. But I think that to keep yourself going, the buzz, I am just the worst person to be around. I'm talking specifically about soundtracks. Concert music's different, because you write a concerto or you write a symphony and kind of like you just do it and then they perform it. It's like, well, that was great, But I think with soundtrack stuff, because you're trying to find in your head what's going on in the director's head, it's not that it's second guessing, but you obviously really want to do the best that you can, but also make it different from your previous stuff. That's the whole fun of it. There's no point doing the same thing. And first 3 weeks for soundtrack, I'm the worst person to be around, because the self-doubt that comes in, the hatred of everything that you're writing, everything is like, and you've got to wade through it. You've just got to write. Doesn't matter. And again, different people have different ways of doing it. But for me, it's like, you've just got to write. You've just got to get stuff down. You just got to go, and you'll go back at the end and go, well, that was a heap of shit, but you've got to start somewhere to get you to the end. And if you stop during those 2 or 3 weeks, you've had it, because then you're just going around going, oh. So you go from a high and a low and a high and a low. Yes, this is the track. No, this is crap. Yes, it's a track. No, it's crap. And you just keep wading through it. And a prime example of that was on this series that I was just doing, Fellow Travelers. And I remember saying to Ron, the showrunner on it, I never play anyone any music for about the first 3 weeks, because, as I say, you're supposed to sleep on it. You're supposed to play it quietly, loudly. You do whatever. Never use your first tune, etc. And I did completely the opposite with Ron. He wrote Philadelphia. Yeah, he's very We're Not Worthy. But Fellow Travelers, beautiful, beautiful series. And I just went. He was in Toronto, and I just went and sat at my piano, and I was like, I nailed it in a day. I knew that this was the sound of his show, and it never happens. And I sat there, and of course, I'm not in the room with him. So, okay, well, what's the best way to play this. I can either go and record myself my grand piano through there, or I can do it here and send it. But it's kind of impersonal, isn't it? It's like, so I literally took my cell phone through to the piano, recorded myself, and I just spoke to him and I said, look, I've been coming up with this, Ron, and I've been doing this, I've been doing this. Now the chords are going to go like this. And then I literally just kind of sat and played for 2 minutes the tune. And I sent it. And he didn't get back in touch. And I was like, oh, shit. This is why you never send anything straight away. You idiots, you know. And 2 days later, I was kind of like, okay, I'm feeling really insecure now. Should I phone him? It's like a first date, isn't it? Should I phone him? No, that would be too keen. But what if he didn't like me? So I ended up phoning him. And he said, oh, I don't use WhatsApp. I WhatsApped it to him. So it's been sitting there in his inbox. So he listened to it and loved it. And it became the main theme of the show. We turned that into the 75-second titles and it comes back over and over again. But I had nailed it. But the point of this is that whole wading through it, it's as much about all of our self-doubt as a creative person as it is about what is actually good. And you've got to stop, again, second-guessing yourself and just go with the flow and think of it as that collaboration and stop worrying and just have fun.
Well, yeah, and speaking of that show, I mean, it's been a great year for you. I mean, this all the, well, I guess it always it's probably last year was a good year because now it's all coming out. But I mean,
actually, most of it, but this Pigeon Tunnel was January, February, March, April. The Travelers was February, March, April, May, June. I had 3 films on during the summer and this series. But yeah, so it's just, and there was this thing called Deep Sky. It was this IMAX film. But yeah, they basically all just come out in October. So everyone's going like, he comes to the premiere, he comes to the premiere. I was like, I haven't got any time. I've got to get composing. So I went off to a few of them for a change. But it's like, you would have thought they could be polite and just kind of stretch them out, you know, month by month by month.
Yeah. It's not too much to ask, right?
All about me.
Yes. Well, after this, I'm excited to see what you got next for us. What do you have coming up soon?
Well, so there's a Netflix series called Bodkin, which is batshit crazy. It's the Obama's production company, High Ground. So it's their first what's it called? Scripted drama. So it's a 7-parter. So now that the strike has ended, they'd filmed it all. And then there was literally like 2 lines of dialogue that they couldn't do. So it's hilarious. The day that the strike finished, I was actually going to an awards thing. I was in the back of the car, and my phone just suddenly exploded, and I had like 5 post producers all just going like, "Right, can you get this finished now? Right, can you get this finished? Right, can you get... okay, right, I can do that week and that week and that week." No, so there's that. There's a feature, Last Breath, which is Woody Harrelson. It was a documentary. It was a feature doc I'd done about 5 years ago on some deep sea divers who dived 2 miles below sea level, and then his tank became disconnected and he was left on the floor to die. And I won't give any of it away, but it's a true story. And so yeah, so been doing that last week. I think I started that. That's finishing off in February. And there was this other film, and then anyway, it's all quite busy, but I'm having lots of fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I'm most excited. I've been doing an album. This is not as a PR plug, but actually just kind of to show you what makes me tick, because I met this cellist, Subi, and she studied at Juilliard, and it was all wonderful. She said, "Oh, I'm really bored of classical music." And I was like, well, I need to put my soul into something. So I've spent 2 years doing this. And we did this album. We recorded it at the Sunset Sound, which was where Prince, Purple Rain, and all of that. And Hallowed Ground. And we haven't even released it yet. We had like the principal ballet dancers of the San Francisco Ballet choreographing to this, and we had someone played it at the New York Fashion Week with a catwalk kind of coming down. I'm just like, I haven't released it yet. I've only just finished mixing it, you know. So it's quite cool suddenly when you're doing something for no particular purpose, going back to that whole have faith in what you do. And it suddenly seems, this album particularly seems to be appealing to dancers, but seeing it take off and have a life of its own, and you've just done it for you, it's really kind of rewarding. So it keeps the creative juju going while you're working on stuff for other people as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. So when can we expect to hear that?
Hopefully February or March next year is when it's going to come out. Good. So just getting it mastered at the moment.
Oh, good. That's exciting. Well, I mean, it sounds like you've got so many things going on right now, and And of course, you're in the lab right now, so I'm sure
The lab.
you're busy working at the lab.
Yeah, it's like
But yeah,
I've said to my director that thing on Last Breath. I probably shouldn't be telling you this. I only just started it, but I was saying to him, I was like, I sampled myself up last night, and he was like, "How do you sample yourself up?" I was like, "No, it's nothing pervy." I said, "I just literally got a microphone and recorded myself breathing, detuned it, and it's like turned it into this whole kind of thing." Because I'm telling this down a WhatsApp phone chat to my director that's in the UK, and probably all he can hear is he's going,
yeah,
well, that's very exciting, Paul. I can't wait to hear it. And in my head, it's sounding great in this place. And,
yeah.
and in my head and so on, I'm kind of thinking, really need to work on how I present stuff to people,
Yeah. That's a whole nother side of the business.
Right.
Love it. Well, we are so proud of all the great work that you've done this year, especially those two, and can't wait for next year to see what you got next for us. And I really appreciate your time today and the great answers, and looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you for having me, and enjoy the football tomorrow.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. You too. Okay, bye bye. Thank you.